Success is a process that continues, not a status that you reach. If you're alive, there are lessons to be learned. In our modern society, I feel like there has been this trend of people wanting to master or improve things as quickly as possible. For example, this phenomenon is seen in language learning, where people want to learn or fluently speak any language in the quickest way. And because of this demand from people wanting things quickly, there are many videos where people talk about how they can speak more than 15 languages or how they learned a new language super quickly on YouTube. To be more specific, I've come across YouTube videos like how to speak any language fluently in 30 days or I learned a new language in 7 days sort of thing. I totally understand the reasoning behind titling videos that are easily searchable and stand out, because for creators to get views on YouTube, it's extremely hard if people are not clicking on your videos in the first place, no matter how amazing your content is. As long as these types of videos give you motivation or encouragement to start learning a new language, then that's fantastic, but I believe that some people might take it negatively. Say you've been learning a second language like English for a year, and you see others on YouTube claiming that they learned English in 7 days. This might make you feel like there may be something wrong with you, or you don't have the talent to learn a second language, etc. Despite the trend of people wanting things so quickly in our era, I strongly believe that there's something beautiful about doing things that we love consistently for a long period of time. I'm Japanese and I've been learning English as a second language consistently for over 8 years. So in this video, I thought that I could share with you my journey of learning English and discuss 3 important life lessons that I have discovered through the process of learning English. Before getting into the life lessons, I would like to tell you how I started learning English. I started learning English when I was a first-year junior high school student, just because it was a compulsory subject. I found English sort of fun, but I was basically studying for the midterm and the end of the year exam, and it was not more than that until I became a second-year student. In my second year, a new English teacher came to our school, and it turned out that he had been previously working for a Japanese beverage company called Suntory as a salesperson. Although he was good at what he did at Suntory, he wanted to teach English so badly that he had quit his job and became an English teacher. I vividly remember being so impressed with how he taught English because he was the first teacher that I encountered who didn't teach me a subject for the sake of tests and exams. He taught me the importance of communication and how being able to speak English would help me connect with people around the world, and how it would expand my worldview. Thanks to him, I fell in love with English and learning English became my passion. I cannot thank him enough for what he taught me because I wouldn't have been able to create videos in English to have this blessing opportunity to connect with all of you on YouTube if he hadn't been my English teacher. You become creative and persistent when learning something you love. When I decided to study abroad in New Zealand when I was 15, I must admit to you that I was overly confident with my English skills, and I believed that I could easily live and make friends in New Zealand without any problems. But the reality was the opposite. It turned out that my English was nowhere near good enough to communicate with the locals or make friends because the only English language that I learned was based on the textbook. You may be able to guess, but this reality was devastating for me. It was as if I thought I was a world boxing champion but completely got knocked out by a random person in the first round. I vividly remember that I was crying on my way home on the first day at school because all the anxieties and worries about my situation that I had never imagined until that day struck me all of a sudden. I couldn't face the reality, so I ended up spending the next 3 months feeling sorry for myself, and I didn't try making friends in classes, and I ended up eating lunch by myself in the school library or in the bathroom. But the situation didn't get better, which is obvious because I wasn't doing anything to make it better. So one day I got sick of how I had been acting because that wasn't who I wanted to be in life. I felt it in my bones that I had to do something. So I decided to write down things that were frustrating me about living in New Zealand on a piece of paper. Then I had a realization that the more problems that I wrote about my issues of living in New Zealand, the clearer it became that I was the biggest issue. For example, it was my fault that I created an expectation that things were going to be easy in New Zealand in my own head without any reason. It was my fault that I couldn't make friends for 3 months because I avoided every opportunity of talking to people at school because I was terrified. I even attempted to see my situation as I couldn't make friends because people in New Zealand weren't nice to me. But the truth is that I wanted to face away from the fact that my English was simply terrible. I noticed that I had the victim mindset of blaming external things to create as many excuses as possible not to try facing the reality and improving my English. Then I remember crying again in my own room, but this time it was tears of relief. I finally felt like there was a way out of this terrible situation, which was for me to do something about the situation, if that makes sense. But my biggest problem remained, which was that I couldn't talk to people in English in public because I was traumatized by the experience that people said things like, "What did you just say? I don't understand your accent. What do you mean?" to my face so many times. So my solution for this was not to try improving my English in a way that I would hate it. So I simply didn't force myself to try speaking English in public. Some motivational speakers might have told me otherwise and to face my biggest fear first, but I wasn't that courageous to start with, so I had to find my own ways of dealing with difficult situations in life. Also, I didn't rush into facing my biggest fear because I thought I would be able to get there eventually when I gained more confidence, and it didn't matter how many years it would take me to overcome it. I noticed that the main reason why I struggled talking to people in public was that most of them weren't interested in who I was in the first place, and I had no ability to get others to be interested in who I was. So I thought maybe things would get better if I could find people who are interested in something that is a part of me, such as Japan or Japanese culture. And I asked myself, where's the best place to find those people? Then my answer was on the internet. So I started looking up language exchanging websites online and started making friends and talked to them whenever possible for many months. From this experience, I could learn that when I'm passionate about learning something that I love, even if things are hard, I can try being creative to find solutions to make the situation better. And for me, persistency to learn something doesn't come by forcefully motivating you to do things, but it comes when you love learning something so much that you don't even care about the difficulties. For instance, I recently got to know a guy who sells life insurance. He told me that he loves his work so much and he works every day and travels around Japan to see his clients all the time. Needless to say, he works on weekends too. When he told me his story, I simply thought that he was crazy because I always want to go home at 5 and never want to work on weekends. But then I had a realization that the fact that he works all the time seems crazy to someone like myself, but it's not crazy for him. In his eyes, he does it because he loves it. The equivalent of his passion for work for me is English learning. I know that I can enjoy it at any time. A lot of people have told me that I'm crazy that I've been learning English for many years, but in my perspective, I've been able to do it because I've always loved it. So I guess what I want to tell you is that when you find something you love learning about, don't just let it go because other people told you that you were crazy. It's because everyone's passions are different, and more often than not, other people can't understand why you love what you do. When you find something that you love learning about, you naturally start to focus on yourself. To find many ways of learning English, I use the internet to find out what other people are doing for their English learning. I mean, we learn from imitating others all the time if we think about it. When we are babies, we learn from our parents because we don't know how to live life, and we grow up imitating what they do, how they speak, how they interact with others, etc. Then some of us do end up becoming exactly like our parents because that's how strong imitation is for us. I went off track, but the first thing that I wanted to focus on was to do research and find out as many ways of learning English as possible. And I thought that I could choose the methods that I wanted to stick with or not eventually. While I was searching for tips on YouTube, I started to come across videos that talked about how someone learned English in 30 days or how to be fluent in English in 3 months. I must admit to you that I was influenced by those videos negatively at first. It's because I created the narrative that my English wasn't improving quick enough in comparison to others on YouTube within my head, and hence I started to feel anxious and frustrated about my situation. But you know what? After a while, I found something that I couldn't tolerate even more, and it was that I wasn't anywhere near my ideal self. My ideal self was someone who could speak English with confidence, and I can't explain to you why, but I remember myself thinking that if I have time to think about others, I should just focus on myself and the progression of my English to get closer to the person that I would like to become in the future. At the time, I was too young to notice the reason for my behavioral change from being jealous of other people's progression on their English to focusing on my progress. But I sensed that it was more important for me to get close to the ideal version of myself, and I subconsciously chose to improve my situation rather than focusing on others, because I felt inferior to my ideal version of myself. Then recently I came across a book called The Courage to be Disliked that described my behavioral change. What I experienced by comparing myself to others was the feeling of inferiority. However, the feeling of inferiority I suffered from was subjective interpretations rather than objective facts. For example, I started making videos on YouTube at the age of 16. My initial plan was to see how much my English would improve over time, so I basically posted videos of myself speaking English to the camera. Although my videos didn't get many views, a few people commented on my videos saying that my English was improving or it's better than a year ago. Then I remember being confused, like I thought I wasn't improving at all, but there are people out there who thought that I have improved. The interesting thing for me was the fact that we were looking at the same thing, which was the progression of my English, and we had totally opposite views on it. Then I thought, maybe it's because I interpreted my progression as slow within my head, although nobody told me that my progress was slow, which wasn't a fact, it was subjective. I believe there's one good thing about subjectivity, which is that it allows me to make my own choice. It can be an advantage or disadvantage, depending on how I look at it. So I subconsciously looked at how I felt being inferior to my ideal self as a means to improve my English. A healthy feeling of inferiority is not something that comes from comparing oneself to others. It comes from comparison with one's ideal self. I'm super lucky that I was able to shift my focus from comparing myself to others to focusing on myself subconsciously and decided to compete with my ideal self. This is because the feeling of inferiority that I experienced towards my ideal self was the main factor that made me feel like wanting to keep learning more English. Do things that bring you joy and happiness because life is long. I grew up in Japan, which is widely known to be a highly competitive place. From a young age, a lot of us get taught that if we go to a good school, we can go to a good university and we can get into a good company with amazing welfare, and that will make us happy by our family and people around us. I remember that I started going to cram school at the age of 10 to study more willingly because I believed that was what it took for me to have an amazing life. And I took an entrance exam to get into a junior high school that I desired. But after 2 years of studying 14 subjects constantly at school while continuing on going to a cram school, I started asking myself a question, which was, why am I studying so hard when I'm not interested in any other subject besides English? And to me, it felt that getting high scores for all the subjects by memorizing everything before the midterm and the end of the year exam became more prioritized than learning something truly joyful and useful for my life. That's a part of the reason why I decided to study abroad in New Zealand. I thought that I could create an environment where I could focus on learning English, which was something that I loved and thought that it could be useful for the rest of my life. It's been 8 years since I made this life decision, and what I learned from this experience is that things that I've been able to learn consistently are the ones that I've loved learning about from the bottom of my heart. Things that I've been learning for many years are English, creating videos on YouTube, working out, and reading books. These are the things that I wanted to do rather than being forced to do, and hence I've been able to consistently learn these things for a long time. From a young age, Japanese people are told the importance of competition with others when it comes to academic studies, which eventually leads to a mindset that we must always compete with each other in this capitalist society. But I've always believed that there are many other ways to learn things in life. So I followed my intuition to focus on learning English that I loved and created a life path of learning things with joy and happiness. The most important thing that I learned from this whole experience is that if I can't find a way or a place that I believe in, then I will be the one to create it for myself, no matter how rough the path will be. I look back on my 8 years of learning English and can confidently tell you that I have discovered a love for learning by pursuing things that I've always loved learning about. I feel so appreciative that I've been blessed to be able to follow my intuition because of the support from my family, friends, and people that I have met in life, and all of them have encouraged me to become who I am today. Because now I can confidently tell you that it's fine to learn things with joy and happiness, because I've been on this path myself and it's been absolutely amazing. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. That's the end of the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. If you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up, because when you hit the like button, the YouTube algorithm helps my channel grow and reach people who are interested in the topics that I discuss on my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider subscribing, and I will keep striving to create videos that are worth your time. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later. Bye!